So someone else who's familiar with you may find it odd that I've gone 45 minutes now without asking you about how is AI going to take over. So why don't you walk us through some scenarios? But first, Hinton had a moment at Google where he realized AI was dangerous and then he quit. Was there some moment for you that you realized AI was dangerous? What was your Hinton moment?
So it was very gradual. It wasn't like a specific moment. I wanted to work on AI safety. I really wanted to bring beneficial superintelligence to the world, and I wanted to make sure it's done right. And we need to address those problems. We need to explain how the black box works. We need to predict their behaviors, test them properly. But the more I did research in each one of those domains, the more I realized they're not solvable problems. And so gradually I realized all those things are just a pipe dream. You cannot indefinitely control superintelligence. So if you ask me, how would AI take over the world or kill everyone? The honest answer is I have no idea, because I cannot predict what a superintelligent mind would do. If you ask me how I would try killing everyone, I can give you lots of good ideas on that, but that's not what you're looking for.
No test to know if we're on that route?
It seems that every red line, every kind of warning we set up decades ago about what not to do has been crossed already. We said, don't connect them to internet. Don't give them access to random users, random data. Don't allow them to manipulate their own code. All those have been violated. And now when we see red teaming reports, they lie, they cheat, they blackmail, they try to escape. So at this point, I don't know if anything's left to cross.
I know you have your response to this, but many people are probably listening and saying, can't you just turn them off?
It would be nice if we could, but it doesn't seem like it's going to happen. Think of other very complex distributed systems. Think of internet. Think of Bitcoin. Think of computer viruses. Would you be able to turn them off?
Now, is this a problem even when they don't have bodies?
You don't need body to be very impactful in a physical universe. You just need access to communication tools. If you have a phone, if you have internet, email, you can get 8 billion human agents to do your bidding for you. We've seen people inspire others with clever essays. We've seen people pay someone to do whatever they want with Bitcoin. You can blackmail people. You can brainwash them. There is no shortage of possibilities if you have high intelligence, ability to persuade, and internet.
So how does that make you feel?
I mean, it's nice to be correct in your predictions, but the outcomes seem to be somewhat disappointing. So I hope to convince people currently creating those systems to maybe not be as fast in their progress as they are currently.
How?
I think it's all about self-interest. All these people, no matter how much money they accumulate, at the end of the day, they want to be alive. They want to have their families and friends to be alive. So I think it's a very strong argument. If they believe my argumentation about impossibility of control, then the moment they succeed at creating this superhuman intelligence, their lives are over.
I subscribe to The Economist. Their science and their AI coverage is among the best I've found anywhere. And I say that as someone who reads plenty of it. I'll give you some examples. They just ran an analysis on how attitudes towards science are changing in American politics and what this means for research and funding in scientific institutions moving forward. This sort of high-quality reporting is fantastic. They even covered how dark energy may be weakening over time. Now, if that holds up, it completely changes our understanding of the universe's fate. If you watch this channel, those are exactly the kinds of questions that we explore every week. I subscribe to The Economist because their science and their AI reporting regularly surprises me with how deep it goes. And they're also, of course, known for global affairs, both political and economic reporting. They are top tier, and interestingly and flatteringly, Toe is one of the only podcasts that The Economist partners with. So as a listener, you get an exclusive 35% off. That's not a deal that they have just anywhere. Head to economist.com/TOE to subscribe. That's economist.com/TOE for 35% off. What is it that you get misunderstood about? What I mean is that I'm sure there's plenty that you're saying or that you've said. You've spoken on many podcasts about giving many lectures and blah, blah, blah. And I'm sure that people come up to you afterward and say, "You're saying this." And you're like, "That's not what I'm saying. That's the opposite of what I'm saying, if anything, maybe." But what is it you constantly get misunderstood about?
So it really depends on a person, right? There are many degrees of misunderstanding depending on their background, what they already read, their degree of intelligence. So someone who maybe frequently approaches me is a person who didn't actually read the article or watch the podcast, but they saw the clickbait title. And then we start arguing with that. And I didn't create the clickbait title. Whoever was editing it decided that's what Google algorithm wants. So I have nothing to correct them about. They are reading the wrong thing and they disagreeing with it. That's great. Someone who actually reads the paper, I haven't had anyone come and say, "I found a mistake in your paper. Actually, yes, we can control superintelligence indefinitely. Yes, here's how you explain a large neural network with 1 billion nodes." None of that ever happened. But people love arguing about clickbait.
Actually, there's a video out there of me being interviewed on someone else's channel, and the title says something like Terrence Tao, sorry, not Terrence Tao, definitely not Terrence Tao. Terrence Howard is right about UFOs or something like that. I don't remember ever saying anything like that. I know I was asked about the topics of UFOs. I was asked about the topics Terrence Howard. Maybe there's some way he was not wrong about some small aspect of something, and it could be surmised or said at some high level. And then someone else criticized me as if I said that. They just looked at the thumbnail.
Yeah, that's very common. So you don't even need deep fakes. You just go on the actual podcast you did, and people get very confused. Maybe out of 2 hours, they heard 10 minutes short, and they formed the whole opinion based on that. So that's incorrect. Or they kind of confuse the different topics. So you can have research on simulation, research on AI safety, research on consciousness, but to a person outside of those domains, they look at you, "Oh, you are a religious freak who believes in God creating something." That's not interesting critique.
Do you get bothered by it?
I couldn't care less. I usually look at what is being said and multiply it by how much I respect the person. So typically anything multiplied by 0 is 0. Praise or complaints doesn't matter.
What's your inbox like?
So most of it is work related, but lately a lot of it is crazy people. Consciousness, superintelligence, simulation seems to be a perfect trifecta for attracting everyone who needs help. And they feel that I have a lot of free time to give it to them.
What are you working on now?
So there is a paper on limits to separating real from artificial. So limits to detecting deep fakes. That's one. There is another one which has to do with kind of convergence of advanced AI models and very similar architecture, almost saying AI is one, kind of the same hardware is being used, the same training data is being used. A lot of times, same people switch labs, and so use same training methods and same kind of human alignment paradigms. And so it wouldn't be surprising if a lot of those models ended up being very similar.
Sam Altman watches this podcast. At least he used to a few years ago because I emailed him and he said so. If you were to speak to him right now, he's watching, what would you say?
I think they just won a lawsuit against Elon, if I am correct. I was just checking a second before. If it's not a deep fake, I hope I didn't misunderstand what's happening. Congratulations. Now you have even more power to guide this process of possibly replacing humanity with superintelligence. Maybe don't. You have a young baby. Make sure we stay in control.
Is it comforting to you when the people who are in charge of AI, Dario, Sam, and so forth, that they have a child? Because then at least they have another incentive to think about the long horizon.
I think in general, it's good if you have something anchoring you to this reality. You're not just kind of temporary resident here. It's always good to see.